Midweek Pictorial, August 5th, 1920. In accordance with custom, Republican candidates for president and vice president have been notified of their nomination. The occasion is usually chosen by the candidates to set forth their views on public questions, either as supplementing or further elucidating the planks contained in their party platform. The notification of Senator Harding took place in his hometown of Marion, Ohio on July 22nd. Senator Lodge made the speech of notification, and Senator Harding replied in a speech of over an hour's duration. A great throng was present, and the speech produced a profound impression. Perhaps the most important and interesting part of his address was that in which he declared against the League of Nations and advocated a free association of nations, which he declared he would do all in his power to secure if he were elected president. Governor Coolidge was notified of his nomination as vice president by a committee headed by Governor Morrow of Kentucky. The ceremony occurred at Northampton, Massachusetts, where the governor resides. There was a great attendance of friends, neighbors, and delegates from all parts of the state. Photo caption: Senator Harding delivering his speech of acceptance at Marion, Ohio, July 22nd. Senators Harding and Lodge conferring before the notification. Republican presidential nominee at left, with Theodore Roosevelt standing beside him, and Mr. Scobie of the Harding Notification Committee on the step above. Republican vice presidential nominee with a group of distinguished visitors at his home in Northampton, Massachusetts on the occasion of his notification on July 27, 1920. The ceremony of notification was witnessed by a great throng that came from all the country round, as well as by distinguished visitors from distant parts of the Union. Governor Morrow made the address of notification, and Governor Coolidge, in his speech of acceptance, defined his position on national issues. Austrian militiamen in their new uniforms. The simplicity of it is notable, as contrasted with the gaudiness and splendor of the old dress. Democracy is the rule in the little army which Austria is still permitted by the Allies to possess. Living advertisements placed by a London dairyman in his window. The baby's thriving appearance is alleged to be due to using the milk that the dairyman supplies. New York children can defy the terrors of the heated term by availing themselves of shower baths, similar to that shown in the picture, of which several have been erected by Fire Chief Kenlin in the congested districts of the city. The water pours down from a pipe that runs overhead, and the children fairly revel in it. Jack Johnson, tall Negro with cigar, the pugilist, coming into the United States at Tijuana, California from Tijuana, Mexico. On either side is an agent of the Department of Justice. Johnson surrendered of his own accord after having been a fugitive for 8 years. He is charged with violation of the Mann Act. 2 murderers whose capture by the Northwest Mounted Police of Canada added other trophies to those already won by that famous force. The one at left is an Indian, Wastasikut, who killed his cousin because he refused to pay a debt. The murder took place April 1st, 1920. And on April 19th, the Indian was caught by Sergeant Thompson, who had traced him 250 miles to 10 Shilling Creek. The Eskimo at right was charged with murdering 2 of his compatriots, and the pursuit and return of the criminal required a trip of 2,000 miles. It was decided that the Eskimo should be tried among his own people, so as to impress them with the reach of the white man's arm and the power of the white man's laws. Conditions in Ireland are still deplorable. The bitterness that has existed for years past seems to grow deeper and more intense as time passes. All the efforts at conciliation that have been made by the British government have proved ineffective. The resistance to the Home Rule Bill is quite as pronounced in Ulster as in other parts of Ireland. Government officials and police officers are being killed every week. Barracks are attacked by armed bands of Sinn Féin raiders, and riots have been instigated in the leading Irish cities. The most serious outbreak of recent weeks has been that at Belfast. Troops riding in motor lorries have had bombs hurled at them, and fighting has ensued that has caused the death of 16 people and the wounding of 200 more. For several days, there was a reign of terror in Belfast. Armed mobs of Sinn Féiners and Ulsterites attacked each other, especially in the manufacturing sections of the city, and both police and military were powerless. A desperate fight took place also at Kilmallock, where, from reports, the police themselves are alleged to have been guilty of arson and unnecessary killing. The prevalent feeling in government circles is one of depression and pessimism. Discussions have ensued in the House of Commons, in which Sinn Féiners have been alternately attacked and defended. A proposition was made by the Labour element to withdraw the Home Rule Bill and substitute instead a Dominion plan of government. The Premier questioned the authority of the Labour men to represent the Irish people, and stated that there were still sterner times in prospect if the outrages in Ireland should continue. Sir Edward Carson, the leader of the Ulsterites, is as determined as ever in his opposition to any plan that shall put the Protestants of the north of Ireland under the control of the Southern Catholic element, which is largely in the majority. Martial law has not yet been declared, but all signs point to its probable inauguration at an early date. The ordinary processes of judicial procedure in Ireland are powerless, and juries cannot be obtained, as a rule, to try cases of rioting and murder. Even if they are obtained, the result is almost invariably an acquittal, either through the sympathies of the jurors being on the side of the Sinn Féin element, or because they fear the vengeance of the defendant's friends if he should be condemned. Process servers have to be accompanied by armed guards in order to serve papers. Civil war practically exists, with the single exception that armed forces do not yet face each other in the open field. In the meantime, troops are being sent by the thousands to the disturbed centers, together with large quantities of armored cars and machine guns. A significant incident in recent news was the announcement that Archbishop Mannix of Australia, who has been advocating the Sinn Féin cause in America, would not be permitted to land in Great Britain. Photo caption: Procession of Orangemen passing the barbed wire entanglements in Belfast, Ireland, in the celebration of the Battle of the Boyne that occurred July 12, 1690. Corporal Black of the 4th Dragoons, mounted and wearing a uniform similar to that worn by the soldiers of William of Orange, who is pictured on the banner. Section of the Orange Parade passing under an archway of symbols on the way to Finnegy, where a speech was made by Sir Edward Carson. Elaborate precautions had been made against trouble, but they were unnecessary. Reserve soldiers with full equipment on guard at a place where trouble was momentarily expected. The life of a process server in Ireland is a dangerous one, and his life is in constant peril. One is here shown doing his work accompanied by guard of soldiers. Thomas Hand, a County Dublin farm laborer who has been appointed by the Sinn Féiners as a judge. He is here shown on his employer's farm, holding up a motor car in Dublin, with the soldiers holding the driver under their rifles while his permit is examined. Sandbags and wires are in evidence. The 10th of July 1920 was a notable one to the Danish people, for it marked the celebration of the return to Denmark of a section of Slesvig that had been torn from them by Germany 56 years before. After the triumph of the Allies in the late war, it was arranged that a plebiscite should be taken in 2 of the 3 zones into which Slesvig was divided. The people could decide whether they preferred to remain under German rule or be reunited with Denmark. The result of the plebiscite was that one of the zones voted for retention of German sovereignty, while the other decided to return to the mother country. This latter decision greatly elated the Danish people, and a great celebration was planned to commemorate the reunion. One feature is here shown: King Christian shaking hands with a veteran of the War of 1864. Triumphal arch on the old frontier, decorated with the national arms and bearing the significant dates of 1864, when the province was wrested from Denmark, and 1920, when it again became part of the mother country. King mounted in center. White-robed girls of North Slesvig strowing flowers in the path of King Christian on his entrance into Hadersleben, one of the principal towns of the Redeemed District. From the buildings on either side floats the old Danish flag. 23 brides of Polish-American soldiers who came to the United States with their husbands on the steamer Princess Matoika, July 22nd. 2 of them have future citizens in their arms. The brides are not all Polish by birth, for the Polish Legion served in France and other countries as well as in their native land, and Cupid is no respecter of boundary lines. The Polish type, however, predominates. Members of the Polish-American Legion, 2,150 in all, arrived in Hoboken July 22nd on the Princess Matoika. They were met by representatives of the New York chapter of the Red Cross, who welcomed them with an abundant repast. One of the novelties that has come to Berlin in the wake of war is the scarcity of window glass. In many cases, it is impossible to get, and in others, the price is so high as to be practically prohibitive. Merchants have been hard put to it to preserve the attractive appearance of their places of business, and window dressing threatened to become a lost art. In some cases, as here shown, wallboard has been substituted for glass. Small panes are placed at the top, but the bulk of the space is blank wallboard. In some of the boards, it has been possible to insert a small pane through which the wares may be seen by passers-by. At the time the war ended, there were rumors that Zeppelins were being constructed in Germany far exceeding in size and offensive power than had hitherto been known. By the terms of the armistice, later confirmed by the treaty, the giant airships that had already been completed or were on the stocks were to be delivered to the Allies. Repeated attempts have been made by the Germans to evade this clause of the treaty, but the firm stand taken by the Allies has nullified these efforts, and the Germans bowed to the inevitable. The first great Zeppelin delivered by them to England, the L-71, arrived in England July 1st at an early hour in the morning. It was a complete surprise to the people of the towns over which it flew, a surprise that was probably not unmixed in some cases with apprehension. The English still have a keen recollection of the tragic events connected with Zeppelin raids in England. The Zeppelin had left Wilhelmshaven the previous evening, and the trip was made without incident. Upon its appearance, troops and members of the Royal Air Force were summoned to form a landing party, and by the afternoon, the Zeppelin had been safely secured to its moorings. It had a crew of 28 Germans on board, including 2 officers. Japanese wrestlers who have come to make a tour of this country and test the prowess of our champions. They are the most famous of Japan. Ted Ray, the English professional, putting on the third green at the Fox Hills Links. Harry Vardon, the noted English professional golfer, driving off the third tee at the Fox Hills Golf Club Links at Staten Island. Opening of the stadium at Antwerp, Belgium, where the Olympic Games will be held in August. Flags of competing nations being carried over arena. Team of girls swimmers who sailed for Antwerp, Belgium on the Princess Matoika, July 27th. They will represent America in the Olympic Games. Some of the athletic stars who sailed for Antwerp July 27th to compete in the Olympic Games, with the best specimens of brawn and muscle that the rest of the world can produce. Canadian team chosen as the champions of their country to compete at the Olympic Games. They are here shown on the Montreal Athletic Grounds. They sailed on the Melita on July 24th. The records they have already made show them as formidable contestants. 10,112 Czechoslovak women participating in open-air gymnastic exercises at Prague, the capital of the Republic, on the occasion of the 7th Congress of the Union of Czechoslovak Sokol Societies. The union has 300,000 members, and of these, 40,000 applied for permission to participate in the exercises here shown. Ornithopter, or wing flapping machine, propelled by the action of the man himself. From tip to tip, it is 23 feet 5 inches. From nose to tail, 14 feet. Speed, 15 miles an hour. One of the most perplexing problems that have called for the decision of the peace conference has been that of Syria. The country has been definitely taken from the control of Turkey. It offers a rich field for commerce and development. Its two chief cities are Damascus and Aleppo. The former is said to be the oldest city in the world and has been regarded by the Mohammedans as one of their 4 holy cities. It is rich in tradition and has great potential possibilities as a commercial center. Aleppo is the seaport and furnishes an outlet for the many and varied products of the country. The two chief claimants for predominant influence in Syria have been the Hejaz Arabs and the French. Before the war, Syria was within the French zone of influence. The claims of the Hejaz Arabs of the country are based on racial and religious grounds, and also upon the service that Arabia rendered to the Allies in the World War. There is no doubt as to the great value of that service. The revolt of the Hejaz Arabs against the authority of Turkey and their alignment on the side of the Allies form an important factor in the collapse of the Turkish power. The Arabs furnished camel corps and cavalry detachments to the British forces under Allenby, and in the great campaign that resulted in the crushing of 3 Turkish armies and the taking of Damascus and Aleppo, they played a prominent part. At the peace conference, it was claimed in their behalf that they should receive some recognition of their part in the war, and also that Syria, being Mohammedan and peopled by a large number of Arabs, naturally came within the Hejaz sphere of influence. The claims were rejected by the conference, and Syria was given to France as a mandatory. In this decision, the Arabs at first refused to acquiesce. Prince Faisal, the 3rd son of the king of the Hejaz, was proclaimed by his followers king of Syria, and gathered a considerable force to support his claims. The French sought at first by negotiations to secure peaceable control of the country. These, however, finally came to nothing, and General Gouraud, who commanded the French forces in that section, issued an ultimatum to Faisal, demanding the abandonment of his claims. A reply not being forthcoming in a reasonable time, the French forces moved forward toward Damascus and Aleppo. They were attacked on July 24th by a troop of 400 Arab cavalry, and at the same time, French aviators reported the massing of Arab troops between the French and Damascus. It was also stated that a hostile movement was being made toward Aleppo. A battle ensued between the French and Arabs that lasted from early morning until 1:30 in the afternoon, when the Arab forces broke and fled, leaving 9 cannon, 25 machine guns, and considerable war material in the hands of the victors. The body of Faisal's war minister was found among the dead on the battlefield. Actual warfare has probably come to an end, with the possible exception of some guerrilla movements in the field. Gouraud is said to be waiting for further instructions from Paris before taking the next step. There is little question that Faisal will no longer figure in the affairs of Syria. It is said that Emir Said will be appointed king of Syria, and he is expected to be amenable to French direction and control. Photo caption: Damascus, said to be the oldest city in the world and one of the 4 holy cities of the Mohammedan faith. It has recently been occupied by French troops under the terms of the French Mandatory. Encampment of the Hejaz Arabian troops, with Prince Faisal indicated by cross.